Hold on.
Oh, good evening. Welcome everybody to Reality Speaks TV. It's your lady has Sparkle here. Hi everybody, and welcome to the SisStar Cipher. Can you please mute your mics for a moment while I read the intro? So, welcome to SisStar Cipher on Reality Speaks TV, where we tackle the conversations most people shy away from. Tonight, we're stepping into a controversial and emotional debate: child support versus reproductive rights. Here's the scenario: two people have consensual sex, an unplanned pregnancy happens, and the woman decides to keep the child, but the man doesn't want to be the father. Should he still be legally responsible for paying child support? Is the law fair to both sides? Do men truly have a voice after conception? And what would a more balanced system even look like? We're bringing you real perspectives, tough questions, and honest dialogue. And even though one of our guests, Jay, couldn't join us, we pre recorded his thoughts and we'll be playing it soon. So get ready for a conversation that's bold, raw, and necessary because tonight we're asking who really decides. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So, what I'll do in the order of appearance, I'll introduce my co-host tonight. Everybody know I'm Sparkle Denise. I'm gonna ask Lakeisha to tell us, who she is, how she's feeling today, and why this conversation is important to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lakeisha, and I'm feeling blessed. I feel great. I was invited. I actually had my brother call me and was like, "Well, how do you feel about this?" He already knows that I'm very spiritual, so I think it was more or less to kind of, like pull me into because he knows I love these sorts of conversations. As I had spoken to you ladies early, two of you ladies earlier, I'm very spiritual, and my journey has put me in a place where I accept that my mistakes were even purposed, if that makes sense. So this conversation sparked interest with me because I can relate to actually having a child, and he's almost 30. I've gotten zero child support, and we were fine. So I don't want to take up time. If you have questions, please do ask me. If I can continue, then let me
Okay,
know, but I
thank
don't want
you.
to take up a bunch of time. Thank you.
All right, so you next, Samaya.
Hi, everyone. So I was blessed to be in the presence
Can't
of you
hear you.
guys. Can you hear me?
Is it just me?
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me? Hi, everyone. My name is Shemaya. I was blessed to be in the presence of you guys. Just blessed, honestly. The way it came about. Um, oh, it's glitching. I'm not sure if the way it came about. I pretty much a friend of a friend who knows someone knew someone, but I feel like everything happens for a reason, and I can apply some insight to this because I am a single mother. I do have children, and I am not married, so I'm able to apply my opinion to that question. And life, they say experience is the best teacher, but really, God is the best teacher, and God's not going to allow things to happen that's not supposed to happen. So I'm excited to be able to answer these questions with you guys.
Thank you. I love that. And Beasia?
Sorry, I have to unmute my mic. Okay. You have a question for me, Sparkle?
Yes, I want to know what's your name. Tell us, the listening audience, a little bit about yourself
You
and
already
why
said
you
my name.
have
I'm just messing with you, sis. Well, my name is Viasia. I feel like on this topic, it's very controversial because it's a lot that comes with it, for child support. And then, of course, is it really the woman's right? Certain things. I myself, I'm the mother of six. One passed away, but I still say six. I'm usually, I mean, I've got a diet, so you put me on the spot, Sparkle. Well, I'm a mother of six, and I enjoy helping people, and I'm passionate about things like this, and I, you know, do the best I can to, help motivate people and bring joy into their life. Oh, that's all I got for now.
Okay,
Sparkle.
ladies, thank you. I appreciate that. So my name is Sparkle. This conversation spawned out of a conversation I was having with my oldest brother, and he's like giving his opinion on. He think that after you have multiple children, the mother shouldn't even be allowed to have child support because why she opening her legs, and I'm like, what? And then I said, okay, you know what? I couldn't get a word in edgewise. You, my older brother. I'm just gonna take it to the podcast because this is a conversation along with. So shout out to my oldest brother. He put the icing on the cake for me to go, but my friend Kimberly actually brought me this conversation about a couple of months back, about 2 or 3 months back, of a scenario that she saw on the subway in New York City. So this conversation I think is personally I think is a root to a lot of this dysfunction and separation between the man and the woman because of the laws that have been set that makes people feel some type of way when things hit the fan. I don't know, but we're here to talk about it. So I do have some questions for everyone. um, the first question that I want to bring some awareness to is, if a woman decides to keep a child after consensual sex and the man doesn't want to be a father, should he still be legally responsible for paying child support? Why or why not? So, anybody want to talk to that? You get you have a something with the dude, get pregnant. He like, I don't want the child. I don't. Be Asia, unmute your mic.
Yes,
You
yes, I'm
wanna
here.
you wanna answer the question? Either one of y'all?
No, do I want to answer the question? Oh no! Stop
Well,
putting me on the spot. You
so
know.
you know what? We'll go with Lakeisha, because them,
Yeah, go
we'll
with
go with.
Lakeisha. Let her answer it. All right, I gotta put on mute because the children.
Oh
No
yeah,
problem.
absolutely.
I was
Lakeisha,
going to
so
go
I'm
ahead.
listening, son.
Please repeat the question.
Absolutely. If a woman decides to keep a child after consensual sex and the man doesn't want to be a father, should he still be legally responsible for paying child support? Why or why not?
And so, what I'm going to say is, I do not believe, as I stated earlier, I do not believe that he should be responsible for paying child support if he already made it clear in the beginning that he did not want that baby. They could have had consensual sex, used protection, and let's just say, for example, they had consensual sex and used protection, and she's excited, but he's not. I don't feel like he should have to pay child support because if she decided she didn't want that baby and he decided he did, the what happens with that baby that's in her stomach still rests on mom. And because of that, while I understand child support is very necessary in order to take care of the children, I feel as if there is a consensual situation, then we have to be able to put ourselves in a position to understand that even if it was protection, I don't believe there's accidents from a spiritual perspective, as I stated earlier. I don't believe that it was an accident. I believe that that child was purposed here. I believe, again, I'm very spiritual, so I know in the Bible, if you guys are familiar, in the book of Jeremiah, it says, God said, I knew you since before you were in the womb. I knew the plans I had for you. So when I think about things like that, I think about, wow, the way in which a situation may have come about, the purpose for it is bigger than what we may be able to understand in that moment. So if God said yes to that life that he knew before it was in a womb, why would he not make a pathway for that child? The question is whether or not the person that is deciding to keep the baby is willing to commit that child to the same God that decided she was going to be the mother. Because I tell my children all the time, I got to go to my father about y'all. I got to go to our father about y'all. And I pray about my children. I've committed my children to God, since they were very young. And one of the things I stated earlier was that I have a son who's almost 30. I literally got zero child support his entire life. Yet till this day, I'm in communication with his dad. While his dad went through his ups and downs, what he would do when my son was younger, because I lived in Alaska for many years, he would pay for the plane ticket. He would make sure my son had clothes when he went to New York. He made sure that when our son was on his side, he was good. Was I needing to pay my rent? Was I needing to make sure our son had clothes and stuff where I was at? Of course. But I wasn't going to chase a man to love on a child that God said, here, I'm purposing you as the mom, and I'm purposing you to actually raise this kid. Because if it was meant for the two of us, who are two different people, even till this day, the way he lives his life till this day is not connected to the Lord the way that I am. So God could have made it so that me and him would raise the kid together. But I look at it like the picture is so much bigger than a check. When the Lord says so and he opens that door for it, doesn't even matter if it looks like a mistake to me. Lord, what will you have me do with the child you delivered that you knew before it was in my womb? And if by chance there is a situation where you need to make money, where you need things to come into order, if you're talking to the Lord, He already understood this was about to happen. He already have those doors open and waiting. And I just say that as a personal witness to what that looks like. That's all.
Wow. Um, you really said a lot. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the
You got
question?
it. Sure. Um, let me get back to the question. I'm all over here trying to share the podcast. Y'all share and listen in. I'm trying to. All right. So, where are we? Give me a second. I got to bring them up. Here it is. The question is, if a woman decides to keep a child after consensual sex and the man doesn't want to be the father, want to be a father to the child, should he still be legally responsible for paying child support? Why or why not?
Okay, so I would answer this in my own way of answering it would be yes, because when two able and consensual adults lay down to do the things that would be considered fun, recreation, we all know that it was the real purpose of sex was to procreate. So there should be certain things that are taken into consideration as far as protecting yourself, as far as because truthfully speaking, a lot of people live their life off of fun and lust, and they're just they just that's all they see. So for me, I personally would say yes, because at the end of the day, we both knew what could come out of this situation. Now, I have three children. They're not on child support, and but I still feel strongly as of yes, because a lot of people run away from the idea. Like they'll just run. They'll have their whole life. Yes, my God is a provider, but like they'll just get away with the constant disrespect and the constant um, coming in and out and playing in the child's face. And I feel as if that's the least that they could do. That's just how I personally feel.
Yeah, I do agree with that too. It's kind of tough because the father, when I know there's been situations when, like for example, some of my brothers, right? They have situations where they got a girl pregnant, but the girl doesn't want the baby, but my brother does, or the man does, and she go ahead and takes away the baby through abortion, and at the result, the guy is hurt. He felt like, what happened? I wanted my baby. You didn't want it. I wanted my baby. So it's kind of tricky in that way too. So I don't know. I'm gonna just go ahead on to the next question. Beasia, you got anything, or I'm still putting you on the spot? So the next question is: If do you feel like men have a fair say in the decision to become a parent after conception? Like I was just saying, like there might be somebody who might want the child. Does the father really have a say in whether or not he keeps that baby? Do you think it's fair on the father's end?
I feel like it could be. They say closed mouths don't get fed. I feel like if there is two adults, again, two adults that are willing to do this act, then you guys should be able to sit down and have a conversation as well. Express yourself. Don't run from it. Everyone's throwing stones and hiding their hands. You know what happened. And maybe you guys weren't the best compatible like match for a couple or a family, but nonetheless, if y'all were good enough to lay down and get down with the get down, I feel like yes, if you communicate that. A lot of men want to play, oh, well, it's me, and they want to tell their sob story. And I just feel like things could be talked about. A lot of things can be prayed over and talked about that would open up doors in the future. That's all I got to say.
How about you, Lakeisha? Do you think it's fair?
I actually agree with, I believe it's Mr. Maya. I believe what Mr. Maya was just speaking correct. Um, I agree with her regarding the communication aspect of it. However, I do feel like those conversations should be happening long before there even is a baby. Okay, what happens if I do get pregnant? What if she's on birth control and they're using protection? I had a situation where I actually got pregnant using protection. But the conversation should be happening if that's what they're going to do. I do not feel, however, that there is a system designed to protect the fathers that want to keep the baby. Because again, like I said earlier, that child is in that mother's stomach. And there are men, I know plenty of single dads that got their babies, when they were little. Mom's like, to heck with this, I'm out. And they raised them, and the mom never looked back. They just are dad. That's the only parent they know. If that conversation is one that's happening early, or even if there was a court system that said, well, if this is how this happens and it's a consensual situation, that father should have some say. I feel like they should be able to have some say. However, we don't want to take away from the fact that we understand that a mother is, no matter what, the court could be like, yes, he's gonna have some say. If you don't want that baby, you give that baby to him. You don't even have to pay child support. I feel like even if that was used, it would still be plenty of women that have a problem with even that, because there are so many women, and I hate this term, but I know quite a few people who have done this with their children. There's so many dangle babies out here. It becomes a matter of, I'm going to have this child to spite you, or I'm going to have this child so that I could stay attached to you in some way. So it's a much bigger, there's much bigger issues in the background that need to be dissolved before there even is an idea of solution. Above all is the idea that we know, like you said earlier, Samaya, people are having fun, when in all actuality this is not how God designed for any of us to be. Sex was for marriage, and because of that, what we're dealing with is the repercussions of our choices to have fun as opposed to obey God.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I feel like sometimes females use abortions as birth control, right? Maybe you pass plan A. I mean, excuse me, pass B, which is the contraceptive. I think you have 3 days to take it. Um, and you mentioned birth control. That's another thing. It's like from my perspective, I feel like the mother has to do it. The mother has to be on birth control. The mother has to take a Depo-Provera shot. She even, I think they have something called IUD, like you put it in there and it gets changed. Like it seems like the burden of responsibility comes on the mother. How about the father? Because you know you two are echoing pretty much what my brother said, but at the same time, with the God saying that this is God's will, I agree with that. But at the same time, the men is entering into the woman's leg. So I think you already kind of noted to it too that he has some type of responsibility, because if he was abstinent or he was celibate, then there wouldn't be no baby to talk about, right? So he has to have some type of accountability for entering the female. James, who's not on the call, he said that he feels like both parents should get a psychological test before they even become parents, because some parents are not mentally capable. So that can be a barrier for issue. I mean, that could be a barrier for having a child have a good upbringing, because maybe the mother is mentally disturbed, the father's mentally disturbed. A lot of it is also genetic. That was a interesting concept that he brought up. He also brought up something about mother states. Like there's some states that actually favor the mother regardless of the father's situation. I looked up today on the census where in the past 22 years, it's actually been a rise in single father households where actually the mothers are being proven to be unfit. So it's a lot of different ways we can go here, but I do definitely think, me personally, I feel like the father should be 100% responsible, held accountable, like the mother should be 100% responsible, held accountable. But what might need to be changed is some of the laws, and things like that surrounding child support. Because how do you feel, ladies, about the current legal system punishing men, like jail, license suspension, taking away the license, or unpaid child support, especially if they didn't want the child? Like, is it fair to the man?
Lakeisha here. I feel like that is a continuation of the system that is designed to continue to keep our men specifically, although it doesn't just impact our men, the majority of the households that are impacted are our men, our brown men. So I feel like that is just another part of the system that is creating a way to suppress our men, because you have states that will lock these men up. You have states that will take away their driver's license. What do you mean? I gotta pay child support, but now I can't get to a job to do it if the only way I can get there is to drive. So there's a lot of productivity in the law. It's laws themselves, but culturally as a community as well, I feel like there's so much that we could do on our end without depending on the system that is not there. Honestly, they're not there to see us thrive. I'm just going to be honest. And because we know that, not just through history, even to, today, because they're not there to see us thrive. Child support, number one, and I didn't even know this till recently, the majority of that child support doesn't even go to the parent if it's going through the system. Child support is not at least what I thought it was, because I never had that concern when it comes to child support. I was married, I got divorced well over 20 years ago. And my ex-husband and I sat side by side in court, and the judge was confused. He's like, I thought y'all were getting a divorce. No, we just don't get along under the same roof. And in this marriage, we had a very amicable divorce. So what I did, because he was in the military and I knew that he was going to take care of his children, is, I let it seem on paper as if he had 60% custody. So when they went to visit, he'd have a house and different things like that. And in turn, the child support I got on paper was lower, but what he sent and what he did for those kids was way more than the courts could have ever decided to do. However, we know most people are not, most men are not stand-up guys. So when those people are not stand-up guys, I'll say on behalf of like my oldest son, for example, it was a saving grace. Like God literally saved my son and his future by not having his dad actually be an active part of his life. He was in his life sparingly, but if he had been one of the other half of a dominant influence, I don't believe my son would be the man he is today. Because till this day, he impresses people with how he carries himself. He's a businessman. He's very articulate. Whereas his dad is so hood. He's so he's hood. And people see his dad and they listen to him and they're like, "How is that your kid?" They're both grown now, but some people never grow up. And I feel like if my son would have grew up around that, then it would have had no choice but to be a part of who he was. So sometimes we might look at it like, "Oh, this man needs to pay." That payment might that gives that man access to that child's life. Sometimes the removal of that man, the inability for him to pay, is a saving grace, and we don't know it in the moment.
Wow. And you just said a lot, and I just wanted to read this. It says the average monthly child support payment in the United States is $430, but less than 44% of custodial parents receive the full amount owed to them. To your point, Keisha. And I wanted to say that honestly, child support is peanuts. And I'm wondering why don't they get the full amount? And I wanted to say, because a lot of times we go to the county building and ask for Medicaid and food stamps and things like that, and they automatically go ahead and take it. So some of that pressing for food stamps, or I mean, pressing for child support doesn't come for us. In that case, that's what happened to us. Hi, Sister Tioka, welcome. You came right on time. So the reason why, so in my case, right, I felt like I don't even want the system in my business. They were not there when my children were conceived. It was this holy occasion. It was this, spiritual thing that I had. To your point, Keisha, is God given. So whether or not the father wants to be involved, I'm gonna have mine. So I didn't want the fathers involved. But my daughter's father, he insisted that I go to court to prove paternity. Once I realized that this is what they were doing, I was kind of shy about offering names. But because he established paternity, he got it on record. The first thing they did was go after him when I applied for food stamps, right? They went after him for child support. So he called me and we didn't talk for 4 years because he thought it was my fault. So it's like this riff is being made, but you went to court to establish paternity. So automatically you're already there, you know. So the system sometimes forces a parent to be on child support. But Sister Tioka, I wanted to know if you had any comments or question or anything to add to this conversation thus far, because I know you were listening. Can we mute our mics until we talk?
Okay, greetings. Thank you. I was listening on YouTube and I was like, let me just get myself together and try to chime in on this
Oh, you
conversation.
have an echo.
I have an echo.
Yes.
We'll tell them. I don't know how to fix it.
Oh,
Let me
okay.
see. Yeah, I can kind of hear it. Um, I don't know how to fix it. Is it unbearable?
It's like a robot echo. I can hear you, but it has like a little
You sound like a
crackling.
robot too.
Okay, so let me try to come in. Okay. Okay, I just came and came back in and came back out. Do we sound better, ladies?
You sound much better, Sparkle. I
Okay.
don't know about the other mic yet.
Okay. Sister T, she probably came back in.
Okay, Shemai's trying to show me how to do it. I don't want to interrupt, so I'm gonna work on what she's showing me. I'm gonna put myself on mute and then come back to me.
Okay, now I see topics. Okay. Let me take away myself. Um, let me see. What am I doing here? Okay, so I'm hoping this is working. Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Because I don't know what just happened a moment ago. So we do have some comments. Sister Tioka says, "Can you touch on what is the origin of child support so we can add to the moral context?" Okay. Ahmed can speak at any time. So, can you touch on what is the origin of child support, Sister Tioka? I don't know the origin of child support. Maybe you could come on and enlighten us. Does anybody on the stage know what the origin of child support is? Oh, and 666 says he agrees with Lakeisha. He's
What
watching.
I will say is, I just pulled it up, and it's the child support is the United States, in the
Oh,
United States, originated as a way to reduce public spending on welfare programs and ensure children receive financial support from both parents. And the Child Support Enforcement Program was established in 1975, was a federal state partnership aimed at recouping public funds spent on families and ensuring financial responsibility from non-custodial parents. So I need us all to pay attention to what was just, what they said. It was established in 1975. We're not even going to get into history and how ironic it is that
Wow.
that kind of meshes over, but was a federal state partnership. It was aimed at recouping public funds spent on families and ensuring financial responsibility from non-custodial parents. So again, this is where we see since 1975, the goal was never to make sure the mom and the baby were okay. It's let us get our money. And if there's something left, you will get it.
you can speak
Okay,
anytime.
can I be heard
Wow,
now?
my mind is blown. Sister Tioka, I have a feeling you knew that already. Come on, Sister T.
I can you hear me or am I still sounding
Yes.
weird?
No,
I
I hear
can.
you loud and clear.
Okay, you can hear me. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so according to reading that, um, you got to delve a little deeper because it was even before 1975. So during the
Could you
1800s,
please mute your mic in the background? Sorry, Sister T.
so during the 1800s and the 1900s is where you got to go to really figure out why did this become part of the lifestyle. Now, when I say if you got to go to the 1800s and 1900s, you have to understand that we were not included, and I'm talking about black people, were not included in this plight for child support. there was something that was happening amongst the other community, that they needed to make sure that the burden of the community, with the burden of raising children, was not just on the community, right? So I know when we stand at in 2025, we see a lot of our black men that are leaving, women to bear the burden of wearing children. I heard everything that was said. And, I can agree and disagree on a lot of stuff that was said. I mean, I stand with a major moral code. So, in order for me to even address some of that stuff, I would have to go into the idea of um, whether we're going to address the elephant in the room, which is that there is this major moral concept that is just wiped out amongst our community. Not just our community, but the focus is our community, because we we become the burden to the society because of our deviation from what's morally right. And when I say what's morally right, I'm dealing with scriptures and so forth and so on, right? But if a construct was set up because someone was being irresponsible, it's very difficult to agree that this should not be a thing that is practiced today. By law, both mother or father have the same type of, um, let's say, not responsibility, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like, if you go into court and you're a single dad, you got the same rights that a single
Obligation.
that's just
Obligation.
obligation. Thank you. They're under the same type of obligation. So by the law, everything that was listed in regards to suspending the license, even levying properties, even creating bad credit, all of this stuff is written that can be a tool to try to get people to be responsible for their responsibility. That applies to both male and female. I know in our culture as black women and as black men, we don't know enough, so we start to blame each other, right? So let me back up and say this. I have received child support. I have been married. I am married now. I was married before. I am married now. I know how both sides work. I know that in my with my first marriage, my husband decided that he would take on the responsibility of my child. And so he didn't want to burden somebody that was already, struggling. He's like, I married her, I'm gonna take on the responsibility, right? Um but I also know with my first child that when I got on public assistance back in Lord knows when, I want to say about 30 something years ago, I understood why they needed to then create a petition for child support for me. And that's the missing key. A lot of us don't understand that. A lot of the men don't understand, and a lot of the sisters don't understand. We think that the government is just taking our money. And that's not necessarily just it, right? So, in reality, the reason why child support was established back in the 1800s, the 1900s, the 20th century, why it was established is so that the parent and the child will not be a burden to society. It wouldn't, because it takes the society. Like, for instance, if you go on public assistance, it's public assistance. That is the society, that is the community taking care of it. These are tax dollars that are taking the responsibility uh, that the parent didn't take, right? So you get food stamps, that money comes from somewhere. It's not free. You get Medicaid. We don't have free Medicaid here. We unfortunately we're not one of those countries that has free health care. That costs. If you anybody worked the job, when you get a job, that's one of the bells and whistles when they say they got health insurance for you. And if you've been on Medicaid before and the job said they got health insurance for you, and you're like, well, I'm gonna get that good health insurance, and then they give you a copay or a premium, you over here looking like, where's the Medicaid? Because who who wants to pay who wants to pay that, right?
Right.
And then the paying of the rent. If you want public assistance is paying rent for you. They're giving you heat to help you with your national grid. If you on Section 8, they're helping to subsidize. These are all these are all government things These are all things that are allowed for people who are struggling financially, and it's not just for single parents. Like in reality, there's uh couples, there's married couples that are struggling financially that have to use these services. So I'm long-winded, but I just want to make it clear so that we understand that yes, we there is a situation where the government don't treat us right. Don't, you know what I mean? But the reality is that if we do find out the origin of things and we apply that information, then we won't be caught up with the way we feel about what's happening. I feel like she getting money and she not taking care of my child correctly. I feel like he can give me more money. I feel like the money that I'm getting from the government is not enough because they skim it. But you're not doing the math. We're not doing the math to see how much it costs for the government to subsidize the things that they are covering down for us. So I have
Mhm.
to address it that way, because in reality, child support wasn't for black folks. That started with white folks when they men were going out and leaving them women with those children. And if you do your research, you'll find out it needed to be established so that the burden
Yeah.
of raising their children would not be on the community. Okay, I'm done. And hi, I'm
Well, you
Sister
better
Samantha.
go ahead and drop your phone and drop your mic while you're at it. Okay, so we have some comments that came along. For some reason, I couldn't see them. So Tracy Laddie at 718 says, well said, coming from a spiritual standpoint. Um, take that comment away. I just want to, thank everybody who's listening from Facebook and YouTube. Kamal says, the fact that women become attached to the child beginning with the pregnancy, how difficult is it for a mother to separate herself and deprive the child life? The connection to that unborn child has no comparison between mother and father. Wow. Okay. Anybody want to speak to that? That's something that I didn't, when it comes to like taking care of the pregnancy or getting rid of it, you hear that heartbeat for the first time. You might, get a little sonogram done, might see a little image, and you might get emotionally attached. That's the perspective.
Yes. Hello, Sparkle.
Oh, hi, how you doing? Welcome.
How you doing? My name is Green. I'm friends with Asia, and Lakeisha is my sister. Who I invited to the podcast.
Oh, very good.
Sua. Am I correct? Your name is Sua. I've been listening to you guys for a little minute, and I'm loving this. I think that more men need to listen to podcasts like this because I don't think men listen to women enough. And I'm going to be really brief, but I would like to chime in if you don't mind to give me a couple seconds.
Sure. You're coming in well. It just sounds like you're far away, maybe, but I can hear you. Can everyone else hear
Yeah.
him?
Okay. I'll try. To speak up a little bit.
Okay, good. I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome.
In answer to your first question, can everyone hear me clearly? Can everyone hear me clearly?
We can hear you. Hey, big bro.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, in answer to your first question, yes, the man is still legally responsible for paying child support, I believe, because of the key word responsibility. All right? The man was responsible for the life of said child, and it would not be fair to the child, the mother, or the taxpayers, as you spoke about earlier. Um, that is often, the taxpayers often have to foot the bill for the child, as you spoke about, with Medicaid and welfare, this type of thing. And as for your second question, no, I do not believe men have a fair say once the child is born. The fair say was negated after the decision to have unprotected sex, which produced the child. Okay, I think that a lot of the destruction actually comes from welfare. No, and I agree with you. Child support don't pay the mother enough to survive or take care of the child. I think men have to step up and do what's right. Even though, like Lakeisha said, I don't need the man there. And I agree with her. I understand where she's coming from. But at the same time, a man should feel innately the responsibility to take care of that child because everything is the best interest of the child. Okay? Maybe he may be immature and feels like, oh, I'm not ready to raise a child. Okay, but at least give the money and the necessary things the child needs so that the mother can take care of the child and raise the child at the very least. But we as men, and I'm speaking from a man's perspective, we have to be there to take care of our children. I have one child, and I have one child due to the fact I know taking care of children are expensive. And anyone have any questions for me?
I just want to know, how old are your children? Are they still school age? Are they grown?
Good question. My son now is 32 years old. He's 32. Absolutely. And he's grown. I've never dealt with welfare. However, what was the other thing that we was just talking about? We was just talking about a broken, and what was that? What was the statement that she made? I wanted to speak to her, and I'm trying to remember what she said. Can you bring that back up again?
So what was the question? I remember asking, like say for example, the father wanted the child and the mother has the right to go and have an abortion. So she's having an abortion, meanwhile the father has a child. I'm not sure if you ever been in a predicament like that, but how does, what would the average,
Ironically, this I have been in this predicament like that where I almost lost my life because I would have been talking to my wife who wanted to abort my child who's 32 years old right now, and I called a cab, and it just so happens to be I was a friend of the cab driver, and she had told the cab driver where she went. So my friend called it and told me that the light go in the cab Christmas. Like Zoom, driving, running red lights and everything, trying to stop her from going to abort the child. Unfortunately, her father was on my side and coerced her and talked her to having a child, that it would be going to abort the child. And to my father-in-law, he did not abort the child. And we were working that was born. However, I feel a man would feel wanting their child, and I was there for my continually, financially, emotionally, as much as I could. So yeah, I do get that.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. I really appreciate your input. It's good to have a male's perspective,
Absolutely.
And Aaliyah Makael says from Facebook, she says, I feel like it's fair because he did the act without protection. As an adult, if you don't use protection, a baby may come. So it's fair that they pay for child support. And I actually have an online poll going on Facebook now about this topic. And FYI, Sister Tioka says the same law applies to mother and father in the courts. Sister Tioka, can you remind us of what law applies? Are you talking about the child support laws? Okay, and then at 7:35, Yakarius from YouTube is watching, says, I would like to share the perspective. The attachment between mother and child begins when she learns she's carrying. Okay. There's no father and mother who comes. Okay, it's kind of the same thing said there. And I think it's one more comment. I just want to, just take a moment to acknowledge the people who's watching from home. It says, men should, however, have some attachment to the idea of being a father. We are in a time when men do not care. Once upon a time, we did. Okay. There's another men's perspective. Thank you, Yakarius, for sharing your thoughts. Lakeisha Watkins says, "Well said." There's two Lakeishas here, and just I think it's just one more comment. Okay, yeah. So that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. I guess my final question for everybody would be, um, in a just system, right? Like in a fair system. Let me just make sure I get the question proper because I won't keep you all too much longer. I know it's a beautiful day, beautiful evening. So my question is, what would a more balanced or fair system look like in your opinion? And Lakeisha, you've been quiet. I'll start with you. What what would a more balanced or fair system look like in your opinion?
Me, I think it. Are you talking to me?
I'm
I
talking
see
to
there's
you.
another
Yeah.
Lakeisha. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
She's watching on YouTube. Sorry about that.
Okay, no, it's okay. I was gonna say for me, I'm not really a huge fan of having the system involved all throughout our lives, up and down our lives, making every decision for us. But seeing as how this is what we have right now, from a legal perspective, I feel it should be one of those situations where if a baby is born and there is a situation where two people are deciding they're not going to co-parent or the dad's like, I don't want to be bothered. It For me, I feel like it would be awesome if there was mandated for them to come into court and create a system of mediation to decide what all the information for this situation is and make a decision from there. What I mean by that is there have been relationships where the woman understood she had stopped taking birth control. Man had no idea. So he's thinking he's good, but she wants this baby. They show up in court for mediation. All this evidence comes out. And in a situation like that, where the evidence will prove, yeah, she absolutely had continued to tell me, look at the birth control here. And if he can prove that he was under the impression that, yeah, she was definitely on birth control, he's using condoms while she's on birth control, but she's poking holes in them. In situations like that, and he's like, I did all of this because I didn't want a baby. Why should he be forced to pay for something the mother intentionally tried to suck him into? Or she might not even be trying to suck him into it. She might have just said, he got some good DNA. If I'm gonna have a kid, I'm gonna have it by him. So I feel like the best change that can come to the system is first step mediation. What is all the information in these circumstances? Because you have some women who have been raped, and the man is actually going to jail for raping a woman. He chose to completely rob her of her right to say whether or not she want to have a child. As a part of his consequence, he should be obligated to child support for the rest of his life. But this is what mediation of the circumstances would look like before any decision would be made regarding child support. And because every situation is going to be different. So now, if it's just a man, for example, that, hey, we just had fun and, I know I should be using a condom, but I really don't want no kid. In situations like that, the courts come together and say, well, if she's a part of the system, food stamps, Medicaid, and all that, heck yeah, you need to pay. But if she's able to do it and you guys can come to an agreement outside of the courts that say he's going to look out for the child, y'all make that work. Again, every circumstance should be first mediated before a decision is made. They don't do that. You had the baby, you implanted her, you pay child support. When every circumstance is not the same, like I said, my ex-husband and I, we were in agreement before we got to the courthouse. I knew I wanted him to not have to have the system pulling a bunch of child support from him because I knew he was going to take care of his children. However, for those that refuse to do it, but yet they just want to play the game in those situations, heck yeah, have the system say, not a problem. You played the game, you happen to have lost it. Boom, now you do have to pay. So it really is a huge circumstantial thing. While I still feel at the end of the day, no matter what that man decides, That gift was intentionally given to that mother. She gets to decide how she raises up that child and what she does with the circumstances that that child is in the midst of, no matter what the father decides. And I feel like God purposed her as a mother, no matter what the father decides. So that is something that, that's why I suggest to people go back to the one who gave that child to you in all things, period. Go back to God.
Mm, wow. Thank you, Lakeisha. That was really a great way of wrapping up your perception and perspective and opinion on what would a more balanced or fair system look like. So, Beasia, would you like to answer that question, that closing question? What would a more balanced or fair system look like in your opinion?
I It's a lot. I just can't remember right now. I'm sorry. I'm kind of tired, but I do, enjoy the podcast. I mean, I agree mostly everything, and I'm learning a lot from this very good show going on. But my mind is blank right now. I'm being honest.
Oh, okay.
I
Well, thank
can't
you
get
for
everything
sharing.
out.
That's fine. Okay. Peace. Sister Tioka, are you still with us?
Yes, ma'am. I'm still here. Can I be heard?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. So I'm pretty much fishing for some closeout comments. I asked, what would a fair just system look like, in your opinion?
So I like what Sister Lakeisha said. Um, what is given is communication. That's like the number one factor, right? So there are different ways that this thing can go down. Unfortunately, because we've been taught or exposed to things that puts us in survival mode constantly. We kind of like function from there instead of actually having function from a reacting to a situation instead of actually responding to what's happening. And so once
Hmm.
you get into that stage where you're kind of like reactive, then everything just starts to spiral. But you can't communicate when you're reactive, right? So what Sister Lakeisha was saying was like, in her specific situation, she was able to have a communication. Also understanding that everybody don't have that opportunity, but if you can have that opportunity, that would be the best way to do it. Is to be, it was only three people there, right? It was you and that person and the Most High when that act went down, right? And I'm a firm believer that even though the man is the vessel, right, that deposit the seed of life, the germ of life into a woman. Once a woman become pregnant, that is the laboratory of God, and He doesn't have any control over whether that child come to full terms, miscarry. We're not going to. This is not a discussion about abortion. I don't want to go there because I know that's very controversial too. But
Yes.
the conversation, it needs to be conversations, right? Before we get to the judicial system. However, once we get there, because if we put ourselves in a situation that now we have to have someone else make decisions for us, as soon as you go to them and say to them, I need your help because I made a mistake. I thought that this person was it, or I made a mistake. I thought that my birth control worked. We all know the birth control is not 100%, even condoms are not, right? I made a mistake. I miscalculate, whatever the case may have been. Once we
Hmm.
go there and we seek their help, um, what we can do is not use the system. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like one of the things that um, I don't know how familiar you are with Minister Louis Farrakhan, but he shares a story of his mother growing up. and how she was on public assistance. And back then it was a little different. They would come to your house and they would look for any remnants of a man, right? They would go through the closet, see if they had shoes.
Yes.
They were very, very strict back then. And, you know, she had her children and she was on public assistance and she worked at the same time. And she did the best that she could to raise her children. And when her last child graduated from high school, she went to the the public service office, welfare, to the welfare office, and they had the last check, and she handed that last check back, and she said, "Thank you for helping me get my children where I needed to get them to. I don't need your services no more." So it
Mm.
wasn't a mindset of trying to figure out what we can get, how we can play the system, how much we can, we got to get out of that mindset. Public assistance welfare, these are temporary solutions. This is not a hustle. Real
Mm.
talk. If you able body and you can provide for yourself, do the best you can. But if you can't, understand that there is a public assistance that will assist you. And because they're assisting you, you also have to be responsible. You have your responsibility at your particular level. So is the system broke? Absolutely. It was broke from its inception. When we go
Mm.
back to the root of it, we understand why our men can lay down and have children and walk away. Because they were bred to be studs. That stuff is still in us, right? We understand why we had to be long suffering to figure it out on our own with our children and just forget it. I don't need a man. I could do it by myself. That these things are designed because we were never taught the art of mating. Never taught the art of mating. We were only taught how to be breeders. Real
Mm.
talk. So communication is key.
Wow.
Educating yourself on what's the origin of stuff and seeing yourself in it so that we don't just get caught up in what I feel like is happening. And so now there's a lot of miscommunication going on between the male and the female. So
Yeah.
that's my ending note.
Wow. Thank you. And for those who's listening at home, though, that may not understand the concept of being without the system, I have some offering of legal opt out windows for men. These are not laws, these are just suggestions. Just like a woman has the legal right to decide whether or not to continue a pregnancy, a man could have a legal period early in the pregnancy, for example, within the first trimester, to formally declare whether he wants parental rights and responsibilities. If he opts out in time, he will have no legal rights to the child and no obligation for child support, but he also gives up visitation rights permanently. This mirrors reproductive choice with financial choice while still ensuring the woman has bodily autonomy. Two, mandatory counseling and notifications. If you have an unplanned pregnancy, if that happens, both parents should be required to attend a counseling session explaining rights, obligations, and options. This would ensure decisions are made with full understanding rather than emotion or misinformation. Um, Three, scaled accountability for repeat situations. If someone, man or woman, repeatedly conceives children without adequate preparation or support in place, there could be increased responsibility requirements such as mandated parenting classes or financial planning. This addresses the second or third time scenario we raised earlier. Four, expanded support systems for children. If a father opts out and the mother keeps the child, the state should step in with public funded child assistance programs to ensure the child's needs are met without forcing financial responsibility from an unwilling parent. This prevents the child from being punished for adults' decisions. And five, equal emphasis on contraceptive responsibilities. Laws, public health campaigns, and education programs should emphasize equal contraceptive responsibilities for both men and women. This means more access to male contraceptives, insurance coverage for all forms of birth control, and accountability if one party intentionally sabotage contraceptions. And if you're talking about a fair system without going through the courts or government child support enforcement, then let's focus shifts from legal mandates to mutual agreements and community-based solutions. This is what we're talking about. You know, people like us who feels like they shouldn't even be on our business, right? So private parenting agreements, the parents create a written agreement, possibly with a mediator or a community elder, outlining the financial contributions, the visitation schedules, healthcare responsibilities, educational decisions, have it signed, witnessed, and notarized, but not filed in court unless necessary. Because we all know that we have cases where parents are just not getting along no matter what's happening. So in cases like this, you know, where parents can figure it out on their own, then here's a much more proactive way or effective way to also help with the child, in my opinion. So, two, mediation over litigation. Instead of child support court, parents use a neutral mediator, possibly a faith leader, community organization, family friend, to help reach a fair arrangement. This avoids the harsh penalties, high legal fees, and adversary nature of court, pinning one parent against the other, man against woman, and the child suffers in the end. Three, direct child support payments. If the father agrees to contribute financially, payments can be made directly to the mother. Bank transfer, money order, digital payment apps, instead of through a state enforcement agency. This maintains financial accountability without government involvement. Four, shared resources instead of cash. The father could provide tangible needs like groceries, clothing, school supplies, medical bills, so the support directly benefits the child and there's no dispute about where the money went. Five, just a couple more. In some cultures and communities, extended family and neighbors help raise children. Hence, takes a village to raise a child, reducing the financial and emotional strain on both parents. Involving trusted family and community members can provide support without legal intervention. And finally, six, accountability through reputation. Without the legal system, social accountability plays a big role. If a parent neglects their child, their reputation in the community may suffer, creating pressure for them to step up. While this isn't foolproof, it can motivate some to act responsibly without a court order. And that is my suggestions with the final question. So, does anybody else have any closing remarks while I close us out here on Reality Speaks TV? Real people, real talk in real time.
One
All right.
last thing that I wanted to include really quickly is that
Sure.
this is a phenomenal topic. Thank you all for having me. We want to also keep in mind that we are looking at the aftermath of a problem that has a deeper root. And so I really feel as if the more we can build ourselves up to be able to communicate, be able to make better choices, be able to align ourselves with the way God had intended for us to begin with and learn ourselves, then a lot of these situations we wouldn't be in the midst of. I can look back in hindsight and say, had I known then what I know now, and I'm sure many of us can. However, what do we do with the information that we learn? At some point, it becomes imperative that we teach our children different and be able to lead them down a path so that they don't have to make the same mistakes instead of promoting, well, you don't need them. Well, just in case, girl, have fun while you're young. A lot of things that we promote as a culture and just as a community of people that we know is unhealthy, but yet we find ourselves in these same cycles trying to figure it out when if we stuck to core values that are beneficial for families, none of these issues are really a debate.
Mm. Yeah, it depends on the values, right? Some your value system. Thank you for that closing statement. Sister Teopa, would you like to close out with any other final thoughts?
Yes.
I agree with her. Ditto.
Okay. Oh, is that the brother? Is that the brother wanting to close out with something?
Yeah, that's Ahmed.
Okay, brother Ahmed, you got the mic, brother Ahmed.
Can anyone hear me clearly?
I mean, I can hear you enough to for you to get your message across. It's a little,
Okay,
distant.
great. I just want to add something really quick. I believe that the welfare system is broken. Now let me explain. I think the welfare system is broken because it doesn't promote strong family ties. I think we need a system that helps promote family ties to strengthen it. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have a man in the house, it affects the money that a family gets. The system is basically saying, I'll give you money that you don't have to be in the house. So this is a problem. In the same way, they can create institutions and gather money from people who have money to help those families stay together rather than promote separation. This is something I've been looking at and thinking about for a very long time. And if we're going to start and make the legal system better, we need to start there. The welfare system does not help families stay together. And like what Keisha said, and the other speaker, communication, mediation is also important because today we have babies having babies, and they're saying, "Okay, I can get another $100 if I have another child." No, this is not an income. This is to help a temporary thing, and I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, brother Ahmed. I really appreciate the input. Really feels good to have a perspective from a brother. And thank you for being brave and stepping on the SisStar Cipher. It's really made for everyone.
Sister Sparkle, it was very, very hard to hear him. But
Mhm.
what I did hear, it reminded me of something that needed to be said. So, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
So
you loud and clear.
when we do go back to the origin of child support, I wanted to make it clear that it wasn't designed um, for Black families to stay together. It was a response from what was happening with white families and the men leaving and leaving the women responsible for the children, and this is what they had to put in place to um to deal with that, right? But when you deal with the Black community specifically, this was designed to break up the families. This is a
Mm.
tool to break. If you go back and you look at that movie Claudine from back in, I think it was 1960 something, it shows you exactly what the brother is talking about. How the idea that they took the men out the house, the idea that they made it so that the woman can work, but the two income households was, made it impossible to get ahead with creating a system for women to be
Mm.
put above men instead of them working together. They started to work against. So that is the breakdown of the family. So I just wanted to, because that's what he was saying. It was hard to hear him, but that's what he was saying. Like there is this part of it that is important to look at is that it is broken. It was designed, this part of it was designed to break the family construct. But in its inception back in the 1800s and the 1900s, it wasn't for that. It was literally to relieve the community of the burden, right?
Mm.
Um, we weren't a part of that. Because if you think about what we were doing in the 1800s and the early 1900s, families stuck together. Families were up from slavery and they were figuring it out. They were working. And when you say it takes a village, it was a village. But then something came in and broke that village. And it made it so that the man couldn't have rights. He couldn't have rights he couldn't be in the home, let alone have rights in the home, right?
Mm.
So there is that big elephant in the room that maybe this could be another podcast. Like how did this
Yes.
construct destroy the Black family so that we can get into this communication so that we both men and women will know that, brother, I'm not against you. I'm trying to survive. And he was like, sister, I'm not against you. I'm
Mm.
trying to survive too. How we can survive together, right? Like the other
Yeah.
sister that said, oh, you get into this, this relationship where you kind of like everything is fun, there's no responsibility, right? There's no moral standard. We just having fun, right? But when you start to have fun and you don't deal with responsibility, this is what happened. So who is going to help us to raise these babies, right?
Mm.
Amen.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I just wanted to put that out there because everything is balanced,
Yes.
and we have to go to the origin, but then we have to see how it applies to us as a people. So go see
Yeah.
that movie, Claudine. That's an old movie, but y'all see it.
Claudine.
Claudine.
Wow, I never heard of it. Okay, I've definitely got
Hmm.
to add that. I got to look that up tonight. So thank you for that. And thank you for everybody, all of my co-hosts this evening. Sister Lakeisha, Sister Beasia, Brother Ahmed, Sister Tioka, Sister Samaya, who had to leave earlier. Because tonight's conversation wasn't about taking sides. It was about pulling back the curtain on a topic that affects families, finances, and futures. We've heard personal perspectives, legal realities, and hard truths about child support. The origin of child support. Thank you, Lakeisha and Sister Tioka. We've heard um, whether we believe the system is fair, flawed, or somewhere in between. These conversations matter because real change starts with dialogue. A special thank you to everyone who have tuned in, everyone who shared their comments on Facebook and YouTube tonight. And thank you, Jay, who has a pre-recorded message that I will play. I will have available on Facebook later. This is Sister Cipher on Reality Speaks TV, where we could talk about what others won't. I'm Sparkle Denise, reminding you that awareness is power and the conversation doesn't end here. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep speaking the truth. Thank you for listening to Reality Speaks TV. Real people, real talk, and real time. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Peace.